This new company, Cassava Smart Tech, how is it trying to break into the market?
Okay, so Cassava, was formed after the unbundling of, the Econet Group. So basically, Cassava, that's where you have your technology sitting, which is basically mobile money, digital banking, and some of the new initiatives that they're putting out. So basically, it's actually moving in line with the global trend in terms of the information age and also IoT, which is the Internet of Things. So you find that besides having EcoCash, which is the main product there, and that has actually disrupted banking, they are actually running with market relevant initiatives in different sectors. For example, you're looking at transport, where they've introduced Via, which is the equivalent of Uber out there. And more recently, they now have a payment solution, messaging and payment solutions that they're running with, which is called Sasai, which is the equivalent of WeChat. So really, the model is actually quite scalable, given the potential that's out there. But of course, issues around disposable incomes in Zimbabwe would actually present some challenges here and there. But we think that the offering is relevant and is in line with the global trends.
Well, there's a case in point. You put your finger on it there. I mean, even though with a modern trend with these countries, Uber has no cars, Netflix doesn't have a channel. It seems that physical assets people are getting away from. But then again, physical problems can still hurt companies like this new company, Cassava. I mean, what about power cuts? I know it costs a lot of companies a lot of money up there. How's it going to deal with that? And also some of the dearth of infrastructure there is in Zimbabwe.
Okay, so those are the common constraints that we find in the broader macroeconomic environment. But I guess some of these companies, the way they're working around it, they're actually finding some solutions around that. So there's been a trend towards clean energy or moving towards solar. So that has been a major drive for companies. But of course, you highlight a very important point that the infrastructure backlog in Zimbabwe is a major cause of concern. So by the end of the day, it will definitely affect margins in the short to medium term. But with some of these solutions, I think the benefits will come in the longer term.
Okay, and I see also just before the break, we were talking about the Sibanye-Stillwater DRD gold deal and how it's going to leverage on the gold price. And they're saying if it went up, it would make more sense for both companies. I see that gold prices are going to be surging, according to your research.
Yes, of course, we've seen stories around drones, missiles, and the like. I mean, the uncertainty happening in the Middle East. So really, that's been a boost, especially for gold investors out there. But within the Zimbabwean context, I think it's worth mentioning that here we don't have things such as gold ETFs and the like. But however, investors could actually get exposure in gold through listed stocks. We have Rio Zim, also to have Padenga Holdings. Yes, it does crocodile, but it is invested in a gold mine. And also there are a lot of gold mining companies that are either privately owned or listed elsewhere, like on the Toronto Stock Exchange in London. So these are the avenues that are available for retail and institutional investors to have access to gold, really.
And what about the Zimbabwe economy right now? I see calls from the IMF for more reforms and belt tightening as the economy seems to be suffering. How do you see it grappling with things like hyperinflation and all this uncertainty over the new currency that's been introduced?
Yes, I think our call is quite clear. I think in the short to medium term, we're going to see a lot of issues, especially around inflation. There's been no solution. So really, we've been putting out some notes highlighting the need for monetary authorities to look at ways at pegging the Zim dollar, probably against a more stable currency such as the Rand, which we think would definitely boost confidence, but also allow investors to then move money in and out of Zim. I guess what is required now is FDI as well as a portfolio investment. So really, the only way to work around that will be through currency reforms.
And how is that going? Because I mean, people tell me on the ground that it's quite difficult. This new currency is facing a very difficult birth in the fact that there is still an active, unfortunately, black market going on in still the rand and the dollar, which is generally going to weaken the idea of a new Zimbabwe currency.
Yes, so the problem is that the monetary authorities or the RBZ have sort of been trying to control things that they're not really willing to relax on the new currency. So as a result, you find that parallel market rates have moved and not around 25, and the official rate is at 16. So there's a huge disparity. So what it causes really is that a lot of corporates, individuals will definitely end up, trading on the parallel markets. But what you really need is financial intermediation, whereby transactions actually happen on the official or formal market.
And just looking ahead to the week, what should we be looking out for in Zimbabwe on the business front?
So what's key? I think currently a lot of economic agents are really waiting for the monetary policy. We expect it well, probably this week or next week, really. So there's need for direction, especially on how we are going to deal with the issue of the interbank exchange rate. I think it's key for businesses really to understand the dynamics there. And it appears that the economy is sort of re-dollarizing on its own. So I think the outlook there is that monetary authorities have to do something around exchange rates.
And just lastly, very briefly, I mean, Mthuli Ncube, the finance minister, he's packing up and heading for Davos very, very soon. But what's the feeling about how he's doing in trying to reform the economy?
Okay, I think he's trying to work within his own parameters, but I think there's really need for a broad-based engagement, especially if you're looking at the business community and how they've been going about in terms of the marketing campaigns. I think there's really need for business players to be out there, actually going out and marketing investment opportunities, as opposed to people that are in these offices, because they also tend to be political at the end of the day. So there's really need to come up with a strategy that maps, the public relations and communication strategies to be quite clear there.
Well, thank you very much indeed. That was Batanai Matsika, the head of research at Morgan & Co., coming to us live there from Harare.